And I'm Mike Pence. That's my wife, Karen Pence. And we are excited to be in Pensacola, just 25 days away from a great victory all across the state of Florida and all across the United States of America. Thank you to Doug Broxton. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you for the hospitality today. Doug knows me well enough to know the introduction I prefer is pretty short. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order. And I got to tell you, I joined this campaign in a heartbeat. Because you have nominated a man for president who never quits, who never backs down. He is a fighter. He is a winner. And for so long, it seemed like he was out there fighting all on his own. But now this party is coming together. This movement is coming together. Florida's coming together. We're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America. You know, people ask me sometimes, they say, you've got to know him. You've gotten to know him over the last 3 months. I say, what is it with Donald Trump? And I say, you know, Donald Trump just gets it, right? I mean, he's someone who literally embodies the spirit of this country. Freedom-loving, independent, optimistic, and willing to get up every day and fight for what he believes in, and he's going to fight all the way to the White House. You know, Donald Trump, in this campaign, the choice between Donald Trump and our opponent really isn't just a choice between two people. I mean, rightly understood, my friends here in Pensacola, it's a choice between two futures. I mean, it's a choice between whether or not America is going to continue to go down the hill to a weaker America at home and abroad, a struggling American economy, walking away from our most cherished constitutional principles, or whether we're going to stop, plant our feet, and turn around and march back up the hill to a stronger, more prosperous, and greater America. But let me say, I choose a stronger America. I choose a more prosperous America. I choose an America that upholds the Constitution of the United States of America and our highest ideals. So I choose Donald Trump as the next president, and I choose to stand with all those who stand with him in this cause. You know, it really is amazing. If you think about it, at the time that America's crying out for something new and different, I mean, more than seven out of 10 Americans know that this country's headed in the wrong direction. America is ready for change. And that change will only come the day that Donald Trump becomes the 45th president of the United States of America. And we got to tell people that. It is amazing that in these challenging times at home and abroad, when the American people want to walk away from the failed establishment in Washington, D.C., the other party has nominated someone who literally personifies that failed establishment. A stale agenda, the most predictable of names. So Florida, we must not rest. We must not relent in the next 25 days until we make sure that Hillary Clinton is never elected president of the United States of America. Because this election is about big things. I mean, you know, I got to tell you, since I joined this campaign, it's like I get up every morning and I about got to turn on the television with a stick. You know what I'm saying? I just never know. That's a better idea, right? I just never know what's going to be on there. I never know what they're going to be chasing after. But the truth of the matter is, what Donald Trump has given voice to is the frustrations and the aspirations of millions of America who know we can be stronger, who know we can be more prosperous, and who know we can be safer at home and abroad. I mean, the truth of the matter is that this election is about big things. I want to talk to you about those few things, and before I slip out of the way and let you get back in the shade. I think it's about security. I think it's about prosperity. I think it's about the highest court in the land, and I also think it's about having government as good as our people. So let's start with security. Despite having traveled millions of miles as our Secretary of State, the world is more dangerous today than the day that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton took over the foreign policy of this nation. Our enemies are less secure, or excuse me, our allies are less secure, our enemies are more emboldened. I know I stand here in this extraordinary place in Pensacola, not far from the Naval Air Station. In fact, Karen and I have very warm feelings about Pensacola because our son just finished his primary flight training here in the United States Marine Corps. The home away from home for the last year for our boy, and we love Pensacola. But the truth of the matter is that under this last administration, policies that Hillary Clinton's committed to continuing, we've hollowed out our military in this country. I mean, the truth is, as we stand here today, we have the lowest troop level in the United States Army since 1940. We have the smallest number of ships in the United States Navy since 1916. The Marine Corps, the warfighters tell us they need 36 battalions to be ready to do their job and protect our nation and interests around the world. We're down to 23 Marine Corps battalions. And on aircraft that you see crisscross the skies of Pensacola every day with those incredible Blue Angels that are stationed here. 2015 was the fewest number of aircraft purchased in any calendar year since 1934, and the average age of our aircraft is 27 years. You know, that's older than my son. That's older than the men and women that we're training to fly these aircraft. And it's just unacceptable. The truth of the matter is that Ronald Reagan taught us that we can have peace, but only through strength. And when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States of America, we're going to lead again with American strength. We're going to rebuild our military. We're going to restore the arsenal of democracy. We're going to give our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines the resources and training they need to accomplish their mission and come home safe. And we're going to hunt down and destroy ISIS at its source so it can no longer threaten our people or inspire violence here at home. The truth is, 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's policies have weakened America's place in the world. And men and women, weakness arouses evil. All you need to do is look at the policies of this administration on the foreign stage, of which Hillary Clinton was the architect. She designed and implemented the Obama administration's foreign policy, a policy of, it's almost hard for me to use this phrase, of leading from behind, of moving red lines, of feigning resets with Russia, and of paying ransom to terrorist sponsoring states. You know, I had a debate the other day with my counterpart from Virginia, and I would have been on time for this rally, but Senator Kaine called and interrupted me 5 times. So, but actually, in the middle of that debate, I mean, what was most striking to me is he kept bragging about that Iranian deal, an Iranian deal that was actually started by Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, $150 billion. And on one day that they released 4 American hostages, $400 million in cash delivered on a wooden pallet. I'll make you a promise. When Donald Trump becomes president of the United States of America, we won't be paying ransom to terrorist sponsoring states. They'll be paying a price if they threaten the American people or detain our citizens or threaten harm. But it was Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama as well who failed to negotiate what's called a status of forces agreement with the sovereign government of Iraq. And because of that, withdrew all American forces and created the very vacuum in which that barbarous terrorist organization known as ISIS was able to be conjured up out of the sands of the desert and overrun vast areas of Iraq. You know, when I was a member of Congress, I traveled downrange to visit our soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq 10 years in a row. More poignantly than that, I stood quietly in Indiana by the gravesides of soldiers who paid the ultimate sacrifice. It's so important for us to remember that our military won the peace and won security by the end of 2008 in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and every American should be proud of what they accomplished. In fact, I know there are men and women who've worn the uniform of the United States with us today. Would you slide your hand in the air and let us just show our thanks one more time? Thank you for your service. When I think of the sacrifices the American soldier made to secure the peace in Iraq and the way it was squandered under this administration, it just breaks my heart. And lastly, on Hillary Clinton's record on the foreign stage, remember, it was Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, whose State Department had jurisdiction over the facilities in Libya. It was Hillary Clinton and her State Department who left Americans in harm's way in Benghazi. And after 4 Americans fell, she told the families of the fallen, when their remains arrived back at Dover Air Force Base, that it was because of a filmmaker here in Florida. When in fact Congress found out through her email to her daughter the night of the attack that she knew it was an Al-Qaeda-style terrorist attack. When Congress confronted her on that fact, she said, quote, "What difference at this point does it make?" Well, let me say to all the patriotic Americans here in Pensacola, anybody who said that, anybody who did that, should be disqualified from ever serving as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. We cannot have 4 more years apologizing to our enemies and abandoning our friends. For the world to be safe, America needs to be strong, and America needs to support our soldiers and never leave them in harm's way. And when Donald Trump becomes President of the United States of America, we will once again lead on the world stage with American strength and provide the American soldier with the support they deserve. That's probably why over 160 retired U.S. generals and admirals, including 17 Medal of Honor winners, have named Donald Trump as their choice for the next Commander-in-Chief of this nation. You know, it's not just security abroad, it's also about safety at home. You know, we all know this is a very challenging time in the life of men and women who put on the uniform of law enforcement. It was just this week in Boston. 2 police officers were shot down while they were responding to a domestic violence incident. But one of the assailants who was taken down was actually wearing body armor when the police arrived, and now press reports are showing that individual wrote of the Islamic rebirth following a trip to Ethiopia. It's a challenging time in the life of law enforcement. Before I say another word, there's a lot of police officers here. Would you mind just showing how much we appreciate the men and women in law enforcement and their families and all they do to protect our families each and every day? You know, I want to promise you, as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States of America, a President Donald Trump will support law enforcement at every level. We will make sure they have the resources and the tools to do their job protecting our families and come home safe to theirs. And we will restore law and order to every city and every community in this nation. And a lot of police officers know that. That's why the 330,000 members of the Fraternal Order